This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay. Welcome everybody, welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. We are learning tonight for Le'ufuah Shlema to Yechezkel ben Sila and Le'ufuah Shlema to Yisrael Meir ben Dafna Buria. They should have both a speedy recovery, and anybody else that needs a Le'ufuah Shlema. Okay, let us begin. So we are on class number 4 of the 13 Principles of Faith. Now, I actually want to do it through a very quick, like less than 1 minute on the first 4 of the 13 Principles of Faith, and then I need to clarify something from last week. Okay, so first of all, let's jump right in. Before we begin, I think I have to say this every time. It is so important, these 13 principles of faith. You have to go, you have to understand it, you have to know it, you have to believe in these. Because if you don't, then you lose the foundation of Judaism, you lose everything. And in many of these instances, if you don't believe it or you deny any of these things, you lose your share in the world to come. Which we spoke about in the second class, in great length, or medium length, I guess, the severity and the necessity of these certain principles. Okay, so of the 13 principles, the first one is that just a simple thing as God exists. That God exists. God, we know God is the creator, and not only God is the creator, God also is mani. God oversees everything. Number 2, we said that God is one. Now, what do we mean by God is one? Sometimes we have bad things happen and good things happen to us. The source of everything comes from God. Everything comes from God. Number 3, we said that God does not have a goof, doesn't have a body. God, and we also went a step further. We said not only does God not have a body, He's not spiritual and He's not physical. Spirituality is a creation, Torah is a creation, God is something that above and beyond it. The real focus over here is that God has no physical body. Spiritual is like an extra step, but God does not have a physical body. You cannot picture God with any type of physicality, otherwise it's a very big problem. Number 4 is God is the first and God is the last, which means that God preceded everything and will, what is it, afterwards? We'll be there when everybody's gone. There's probably another word for that, but I don't know. But anyways, God is the first and God is the last. Okay, that was the brief part. Last week we spoke about prayer. Now, I'm surprised. Last week, a few days after I gave the class, I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I was so clear, and I may have not presented something so clear. So I want to clarify a few things. So first of all, let's do a very brief overview of what we spoke about last week, because I think last week was a very important topic about prayer. Now, of the 13 principles of faith, number 5 is the one that says that you could only pray to God, you can't pray to anybody else. So I don't know if people, when they say sometimes people. You know how something bad happens and then words slip out of your mouth, and then depending where you are, you're like, oops, because God is only in certain places, obviously, and not in other places. It's also, it's funny because I get that often. I have people talk to me, and then sometimes they slip. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, Rabbi, I didn't mean to say that in front of you. I'm like, you don't have to apologize to me. I mean, just look up every time you say it. It doesn't matter if I'm around, if anybody else is around. But there's certain times, there's certain 4-letter words sometimes that slip out of people's, mouth, and that they should, like work, and love, really dirty words that people cannot comprehend. But in any case, sometimes, I don't know why this happens, but you ever have it that you see a regular Jewish person and something else happens and he's like, cheese and rice, but he doesn't say cheese and rice, he says something else that sounds very similar to that, and and I'm like, what you doing? What does that even mean? By the way, you have some people that they go knock on wood. That's also a Christian thing. Now, these things, while it's not good to do at all, it's questionable. Is that considered praying? You're not praying to that, to JC. You're not an accident. I mean, you're like, come on, geez, let's do this. You're not praying in it, but still, it's not a good thing to have slip out of your mouth. However, the essence of this principle is that there's only one source of prayer, and that's only God. And now this has to be clear also in regards to rabbis. You cannot pray to rabbis. People go to the graves of rabbis and they start praying. You're not allowed to pray to the rabbi. You're praying to God in the merit of the rabbi. But that's also something that's very important to understand. We spoke last. Yes.
Wait, so you said, what if how people go to Kivrachal or whatever, they're just praying but near the vicinity of the body? What is that?
They're not. So let's say. So the question is, what do you do when you go to a grave? What is the power of the grave? Yeah. The power of the grave is there is extra. You go to a holy person. There's an extra spiritual power in that grave, in the merit of that person. When you go to let's say a holy person when they're alive, it's also a spiritual power to be in their vicinity. And when they pass away, it's also there's a spiritual power to pray in that area. But you're not praying to them. You're praying to God in the merit of this righteous person. Same thing with family members. Sometimes there's a connection, that's going on over there. Sometimes you could, whatever. There's different things. There's a lot to speak about when you speak about going to graves. But one of the most important things is people, you go to the, a big rabbi's grave. You cannot be praying to the rabbi. You're praying to one source and one source only, and that is God. That's the only source that you're able to pray to. So that is the principle over here. However, when we, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So can you kind of when you're praying ask this person or the rabbi as a messenger, kind of? You know what I mean?
Can you pray on my behalf?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so your question is, can you go and ask, let's say, a relative, can you pray on my behalf? In essence, in a simple answer, technically, yes. You're not praying to this person. You're saying, can you go and pray to God on my... That's another thing in itself,
Can you talk to them, if it's comforting for you, go and be yo, what's up?
You mean therapy?
Yeah.
Can you go to you could go to a grave. There is a part of the soul that stays always in the grave.
But talking to them.
Yeah.
Praying yo, can you grab whatever.
I mean, can you go? I mean, you're not, it's not, because you're talking and conversing. Right.
But I was just saying.
Right. You have, if somebody wants to go and schmooze to somebody, sometimes it's the best therapy. By all means. I mean, but the main thing is you cannot pray. You cannot pray. Best listeners, that's true. Yeah.
I feel there's a law that you're not supposed to contact the dead.
There is. You're not contacting the dead in bringing them back. You're not, so you're having sort of a one-way conversation where you cannot do, halakhically you're not allowed to contact the dead and it's like a seance, for example. You're not allowed to call the dead, to you and ask them questions based on that. So you're not gathering information. You're not bothering the dead. You're not calling them. And again, most people nowadays don't know what exactly how it's done. However, there is quite a few that do know. So these things are forbidden, very, 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 very much so forbidden, and you have to stay very, very, very far away from these things. Very, very big sin. But to pray to somebody is a different sin in its entirety than calling upon them. Two different types of sins. But over here, referring to the questions that are being asked is not that you're praying to them. You're asking them to maybe pray on your behalf, but you're not bringing the actual spirit down, and you're not conversing with them. Two different, really three different categories that we're dealing with over here. Okay, the main part, point. That's between point and part. It's port. It's a new word I just made up. So. What you cannot do and what you can do. You can pray to God and you cannot pray to anybody else. That's as simple as that. It can't be any, there's nothing else that you can plug in over there. So when we spoke last week, we spoke about idolatry. And this is where I think parts got a little bit confusing, at least when I thought about it. Maybe it came out clear, and I really hope that it did come out clear, but it didn't feel like, as I was contemplating it and thinking about it, it didn't sit well with me. So I wanted to clarify. So number one, what are the idolatries? The Rambam says that the stars, they have power. They don't have powers. They have knowledge. They are alive beings. They have knowledge. And people in the ancient days, they used to know about these things, and they had a real test to go and pray to these types of celestial beings. Now, these celestial beings, they were able to manipulate them in a certain way that they would be able to receive things that they wanted in a particular fashion that they did it in, which again is forbidden. Now, the difference between praying to God and praying to idolatry, there's many differences, but one difference that we focused last week was the difference that it's all about me. Idolatry is the person that has the wielder of the power, the one who actually has the power, and then there's a person who is the source of the power. So what the difference is that, let's say, these celestial beings, they're the sort of the wielders of the power, but God is the source of the power. Idolatry goes to that middle being and says, forget about God. If I could just get what I want, I couldn't care less about anything else. That is idolatry. Judaism, it focuses on God. We have to go through God. God supplies everything. There's no point of going to the messenger if you could go directly to the source. Idolatry goes to the messenger, and Judaism goes to the source. Now, one of the main differences is who is the focus. In idolatry, the focus is all about me. And that's why you look at ancient idolatries, it's all about, there's the God of love, there's God of war, there's God of money, there's God of everything, there's a God, because this is where your focus is. I just want this. Oh, what about everybody? I couldn't care less. As long as I get what I want, I am good, I am golden. The Judaism, it's you have to do what you need to do. And then granted, God will give it to you. It's not all about me. Now, we have, let's say, some people that they go and they pray. And they pray just for their own, they just want things. They have a whole list. They have a shopping list that they go to God and say, God, listen, I need blah, 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 blah. Thank you, and I'll see you next year on Yom Kippur. And that's pretty much it. Now, that is also serving God out of a pure selfish reason. You're just wanting your stuff. Very similar to idolatry. Now, this is the part, I don't know if I was clear or not. It's not idolatry if you go and pray to God like that. It's still good, and it's still pray to God, and you're still allowed to do that. It's still a good thing. Go pray. Give God your list of things. Of course, it's a good thing. It's just there's levels of prayers. That is not the best way to pray. That is not the highest way to get, and that's not going to be the most powerful way to get what you want, if you could say like that. So this is the part that I wasn't sure if I was so clear. You are 100% allowed to go and pray to God and ask God for your own personal things, and you should ask God for your own personal things. However, there's different ways of the correct way to do something. In Judaism, the correct way to do it, what's the correct way to actually pray? Number one is self-nullification, realizing that everything is from God and you're like nothing. You're not the source of anything. Everything is directly from God. The ideas that we explained last time is like bowing down. When you bow down, you put your head, which is the most intellectual part, which is the highest part, you put it to your feet. What that means is that you're telling God, like, the distance between me and you, my head and my feet are the same. You're nullifying yourself to God. Also the idea of shechting, slaughtering. When you slaughter the animal dies, and you're saying, like, God, I wish, it's as if I am slaughtering myself. You're nullifying yourself in front of God. When you're lowering yourself in front of God, that is the correct way to go and pray, realizing that you're nothing. And then the flip side is realizing that God is the source of everything. You want anything, the only way to get it is through God. Yeah, you have to do your shtadlut, you have to do your work, you can't just sit at home and just expect everything to come to you. You have to do what you have to do, but ultimately the source of everything is God. So the idea that I also want to bring out, and I think I brought this out last time, is some people become religious to get stuff. So they, let's say, the example that I like to use often, because I feel like it's fairly common, they're trying shidduchim. They're trying for a long, long time. They can't get married. They try matchmakers. They tried this. They can't try. Okay, let's try being religious for a little bit. Maybe God will give it to me that way. So you're doing it in order to get something. Now, that's not a bad thing. You're doing something. Even that you do something not for the right reasons, ultimately it's going to come to the right reason. So you still should do that. But just know that's not the highest level. And because it's not on the highest level, it's very possible that someone that does that will slip and fall back and become not religious. Because they're only here for themselves. They're only coming religious because they want to, someone tried to open a business, fail. He says, you know what, Shabbat, source of all blessing, let me start keeping Shabbat. They start keeping Shabbat for a few months, and they're not a multi-billionaire or gazillionaire or trillionaire, however, men tend to think. Now, they're like, well, what's the point of all this? And then they leave it. They leave it all. The idea behind it is that when you went into it, you didn't go into it for the right reasons. Nonetheless, it's still good that you still do it even if it's not for the right reasons. It's still good to do things in Judaism even if it's not for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons, because eventually the more that you do something good, you'll see the beauty of it, and then it'll turn into the good things. That is just the recap. Clear? Okay, so I hope, I don't know how clear it was last week, but I was thinking about it, it didn't feel clear to me. So I hope now it's clear. If there's any questions, feel free to not ask and just nod your heads and say no questions. Okay, because we want to get, okay. Now we'll ask the questions afterwards. So I want to finish I want to get to the next principle. Okay, so now we're up to principle number 6. Principle number 6 is Ani מאמין באמונה שלמה שכל דברי נביאים אמת. That all the words of the prophets are true. So if you want to look at the source is in Dvarim, Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. It's referring to a prophet who will come among you and you have to listen to him. The Rambam brings down that if somebody comes in and says that there's no such thing as prophecy, God does not communicate with humans, that person is known as apikoret and they have no share in the world to come. Now, what I want to try to go through and explain today is what is the...
Say that again? If someone
says that there's no such thing as a prophecy.
Right now, nowadays?
No, in general. God never communicated with, ever. There's no such thing that people are on drugs and, that never happened. Whatever people say. I've heard very interesting theories. Nonetheless, it's, that person has no share in the world to come. Which I always wonder, like a lot of these things, like you don't gain anything by saying it. Like, what do you gain? You lose everything, gain nothing. Like why would somebody say, there's no such thing as prophecy? Just shut your mouth, pretend to believe it, and, move on in life. I mean, obviously God knows your thoughts, but some people do things that make absolutely no sense. They're playing with such strong fire, explosives, that there's absolutely no gain from it. Like, I understand if you take like fireworks and it's going to be like really cool, you mess up, you get burned, you bought it from China, whatever it is, the reason is, you're at least hoping somebody benefit. What benefit can you come and say there's no such thing as profits? So, it's just like playing with gunpowder. It's just like literally like nothing good is going to come out of it. You can't I don't know how to play with gunpowder, but I have some friends that are pyromaniacs that I'm sure can explain to me what can be done with these things. But there's nothing good that can become of it. It's what I call an insane sin. Makes no sense. Like, there's something wrong intellectually if someone goes and do these types of sins. So now, why is it so important? Why is it so important that prophecy? Why to make it one of the 13 principles of faith? So number one is that the only way that human beings can understand what's the will of God is only through prophecy. How else are we going to understand the will of God? How else can we know what God wants? And in fact, the Torah, the giving of the Torah was a prophecy. I mean, everybody was able to there. Everybody saw God. Everybody heard. Everybody seen God. Everybody heard God. It was a prophetic, for the entire nation. Moshe Rabbeinu, the whole thing was prophecy. The only way that the stands in it, the only way that the Torah we know that comes from God is if there's prophecy. Because if there's no prophecy, then people make, there's no connection. So it's very important that there is, this concept of prophecy. Now, when you're dealing with theology is like the study of an understanding of God. Judaism has very little on this. Doesn't have the understanding of God. Christianity, for example, has it. Reb Shimshon Raphael Hirsch goes and explains that Christianity was created by man to understand God. Judaism was created by God for man to understand man. So you understand the difference in it. And that's why you have a lot of these religions. They tell you things about God. God does this, God had a son, God did this, God has many arms, God, the God of war, God, blah. They start explaining everything about God. Now, who's going to argue with them? No, I don't think so. No. Hey, you believe that. I believe this. We're too, nobody can conflict them. Nobody can argue with them because nobody could say, well, I saw God. I mean, people do say that, but I'm saying usually those people are in places where there's white lab coats. But generally, you cannot contradict something that's in the spiritual realm because you cannot prove it in the physical sense. So, Judaism, in itself doesn't delve at all into the theology of God, understanding God. In fact, we know very little about God. We know that God exists. We know that God is great. We know, we say in Tehillim chapter 145 verse 3, His greatness is unfathomable. We know He's awesome, He's great, but that's as far as we know. We don't know anything about it because we can't comprehend it, which is one of the discussion of the first class of the 13 principles of faith that we gave. Now, you have many people that they confuse Kabbalah with trying to understand God. Kabbalah does not tell you about God. It tells you how God relates to the world, how God interacts with the world in the Kabbalistic sense. So when you're studying Kabbalah, you're not studying about God. We cannot fathom God. Now, with all this understanding, explains Reb Shimshon Pincus, it's very difficult for us to understand prophecy. We can't understand the next world, so it's very difficult for us to understand prophecy. We're going to try to explain to the best of our ability how we can comprehend this, the prophetic powers. Now, in Tanakh, in Shmuel, chapter 9, verse 9, the prophecy means seeing. Explains Reb Shimshon Pincus, let's say you go and you're blindfolded, and someone puts an object in front of you, and you start feeling around this object, and you're starting to, you feel it, you open it up, it feels like a book, there's pages, you're like, okay, this is a book. Now, you're blindfolded. You have no idea of the contents of this book, but you know that it's a book. You can pick out the size, the weight. It could be a New Testament. It could be, the Torah. It could be, the Quran. It could be anything. It could be, Clifford, the big red dog. I don't know. That's how it's called? Okay. Yeah, it could be anything. I mean, I don't know. They're not usually that thick. But, it's an encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia or the Torah. You don't know the difference. You just know that it exists. And you could go like, it's something very fascinating, something that you would spend like a year trying to just figure just by touch. Let's say you want to figure it out. So you'll start rubbing the top, and you see sometimes if it's protruding the letters, and you'll try to read it even though you pretend you know Braille, and you try to figure out. You could try to figure out many, many things, but it'll be very, very difficult for you to figure out the basic concepts of what that object is. But then you open your eyes for a second, and instantly you understand everything. Okay, it's a Torah, not the fake one, the real one. You go on, you're able to go with just seeing for like an instant. The prophecy, the way we understand prophecy is that the world for the prophet is just opened up in front of them. They see everything instantly. Everything is just so clear. Everything is like in a clear state, like the difference of someone who's trying to feel something, blindfolded, versus someone seeing something. Blindfolded is the way that we see things. Without a blindfold, that's a prophet. You have many books and holy sfarim proving God, explaining, how do we prove God. You have the Sefer HaKuzri, you have the Sefer HaKarim, you have the Rambam, and you have the, the Moreh Nevuchim, you have the Chovot HaLevavot, you have many books like this, and the more that you could try to go and understand and try to prove God, it pales in comparison to what a prophet could see in an instant. Like, even you have all that knowledge, it's nothing compared to what a prophet sees the second that they have that prophecy. Now, let's say you go and you are blindfolded. You're feeling it, it's a book, you know nothing. Then you take it off for like 2 seconds, you see the book, you're like, okay, it's a secular book of psychology. And then you close your blindfold again. And then someone asks you, says, what was the book? And you say, it was a psychology book. And he says, are you sure it wasn't physiology, a study of physiology? And you're like, wait a minute. I saw it. I'm pretty sure it's spelled very similar. The two worlds apart. Psychology is the study of the human behavior. Physiology is how the human body works. So you could, even if you see something, you could still misunderstand something, and you could still misrepresent something, even with the vision that you have. Now, even furthermore, if somebody's really good at convincing you, be like, I never even took off your blindfold. How do you even know that? Like, how do you know? Maybe I did it. Maybe you're dreaming now. Everything is fake. Could be you're in a coma and you got stuff put into people get when people do it, like, I don't know, I'm real, and then they start stabbing themselves and then they end up in the hospital. But most people don't do that. But how do you know that you're real? How do you know that there's always something like, but I don't know. Prophecy, there's no but I don't know. Everything is crystal clear. I gotta slow down. When I start combining words, that means I'm speaking too fast. Okay. Let's take a breather. Okay. Guys, you have to calm down. Just relax. Speak so fast, I can't understand you. Okay, so now, prophecy. Super clear. When you're looking through vision, even your vision is not as clear as what a prophet can see, the clarity that a prophet can see.
Do the prophets, their whole lives were like that, or they had certain?
No, when they have, when they had the prophetic visions. There is a pasuk in Kohelet that says that a person doesn't know when his time to die is, and it could come suddenly. Now, ask the Chachamim, says, what do you mean suddenly? A person should always be preparing the day of death. Everybody should say, what the Chazal tell us, that you should always, prepare that it's as if today is going to be your last day. Do your tshuva, get everything in order. This way, so like the way that you're supposed to do is like your whole life you should be preparing for death. So what does the Torah mean when it says, you can never prepare for death because it comes so suddenly? Imagine somebody's blind and you're trying to describe to him what eyesight is. Now you could try to prepare this person for like 30 years and explain to him, or her everything about eyesight and vision and things like that. But it pales in comparison when they're actually going to be able to see. Let's say they go through a procedure and they're able to see. It pales in comparison, like what you explain to them is just like a drop in the sea to what they could actually see now. When a person is in this world, it's a dark world. We think it's a bright world. It's a very dark world. The next world is a very bright world. Two different things. Like your mind just opens up. Like as much as you think you can prepare for the next world, it's nothing in comparison to it. It's it's everything. Everything is different. Everything is clear over there. Everything that makes sense over there. Here, nothing makes sense. Here, nothing is clear. So it's a different world in itself. Prophecy has the ability to see that clarity. It has the ability to see that clarity. Now, when prophets cannot prophesize on their own will and own violation, it goes based off what God wants, whatever God grants it. Now, these prophets, they have to raise themselves to a very high level spiritually. They have to be very, very smart. They have a great intelligence, strong character. They have to have constant controls of their emotions. Their mind is clear. They're separated from the worldly things. The Rambam in Shmona Parakim goes and explains that there's a Gemara in Nedarim that says that a prophet, in order for a person to have prophecy, he has to be wise, he has to be strong, and he brave, and he has to be rich. Now, really, that's what that's what the qualifications of prophecy. You have to be wise, brave, and rich. Says the Rambam, explains what it means when it says wise, brave, and rich. So first, by rich, says the Rambam. He says, what is a rich? Rich means that someone is content. Says the Mishnah Pirkei Avot, asamech bechalko. Who is somebody who is wealthy? Somebody who is satisfied with his lot. Somebody who is content. That's what it means when a prophet has to be rich. It has to be that he has to be satisfied with his, and we'll soon see why this is so important. What does it mean, brave? Brave means moral perfection. You're morally a kosher person. We see also Mishnah Pirkei Avot, Ezo Agibor, who is somebody that's brave, that's mighty. Hakodesh is Yitzchak, somebody that's able to overcome his temptation, his desires. You want to know if someone really is strong, really is powerful? Somebody who's able to control themselves, that's somebody who's strong. Not somebody who could lift 7,000 pounds. Somebody who could lift 7,000 pounds doesn't mean anything about the person. Somebody who's able to control themselves are a lot stronger than somebody that can lift, a lot of weight. Wait, what did we miss over here? We said wise. Okay, wise makes sense actually. We don't have to. The Rambam goes and says, not like the foolish masses. The foolish masses think that God just grants prophecy to anybody. When it is just like prophecy. Jesus, I'm sorry. Just like anything or any other religion that may think that like God just grants someone prophecy even though they don't keep Shabbat and they don't keep all these mitzvot that God is going to grant them. No. You have to be a very, 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 very righteous person. In order.
Sorry, are there any prophets nowadays, or I already don't know?
No.
How do you know if someone has a prophet or something?
Oh, we're going to explain how to know if there's a prophet or not. Yeah. We'll also give you criteria how to become a prophet. Well, we'll go through the schooling and things like that. Give you all the details that you need to get. Okay, so thank you. But yeah, a person has to be very, very holy in order to get prophecy. It doesn't just go to anybody. In fact, if let's say somebody goes and performs miracles, right? Jesus, and someone like that. I'm sorry, I'm allergic to some, ideas. So, there is, let's say somebody goes and perform miracles. Doesn't mean that they're a prophet. That means absolutely nothing in prophecy. You know how you tell if there's a prophet? First of all, has to meet all the criteria that we said before. Very, very righteous person. After that, they have to perform signs. What's the sign that anybody know what's a sign? A prophet? Take a rabbit out of a... No, okay. The sign of a prophet is that they have to be able to predict the future. That's one of them. That's one of the ways that they're able to predict the future. Now, if they go and they're able to predict the future, that's a real prophet. Now, this says the Rambam. It says also in this, I believe it's in Yerushalmi and Sanhedrin, and the Rambam brings us, I believe, in Hilchot Yesodei Torah, that when you have a prophet and they prophesize that something bad is going to happen in the future. There's going to be a famine, someone's going to die, and that doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that they're a false prophet. Why? Because God is merciful. God, maybe they changed, maybe they did a tshuva, and you're able to change, those type of decree.
They predict the future, but not in the course of nature,
Right. They can't be like, tomorrow the sun will rise at sunrise, and you check a calendar. That's not prophecy. That's just reading. But they predict something that's not going to, obviously that would make sense that it's a prediction. Now, let's say you have a prophet that predicts something good that's supposed to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Then you know that it's not a kosher prophet. Then you could ask, hey, what happens if, let's say, something good was supposed to happen to somebody, they predicted it, and it didn't happen, maybe the person sinned. And we have proof for this in the Torah. The Yaakov Avinu in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 28, verse 15, it says, God says to Yaakov, he says, V'hinei anochi imcha, and I am with you, v'shemarticha b'chol asher telech, and I will guard you and I will watch you with wherever you go. Then later you see in chapter 32, verse 8, that when it comes to Esav, it says, V'yira Yaakov me'od, and Yaakov became very worried. Said, why are you worried? God told you He's going to be with you. Why are you worried? It says that the sages explain because maybe Yaakov was afraid that maybe he did a sin, that he wasn't worthy of the protection of God. So we just said over here that if you're going to have this decree that something good is supposed to happen, God, if something good is supposed to happen, God promises something, it's going to happen. So what's the difference over here? So the difference is that it depends on how this information comes. If this information comes to just private prophet, about himself, then yeah, it depends. If he could have done something good, he could have done something bad, maybe he'll forfeit it. But if a prophet goes and says something to somebody else in the public, that for sure is going to happen. Whether the person is worth it or not, God promised something, it's going to happen. So the idea over here is that if a prophet goes and prophesies something that's good that's supposed to happen, and it doesn't happen, false prophet. It does happen, then you know that it's a good prophet, assuming obviously that he is a righteous, holy, and very, 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 very righteous person. Okay, so there is another way that we could establish a prophet. If you have an established prophet already, goes and says to the other person, this person is also a prophet. We have over here that Moshe Rabbeinu did this to Yehoshua. Moshe Rabbeinu said this to Yeshua and said that he testified on Yehoshua. Now, the way that prophets see their prophecy, it could either be in a dream, a vision, or in a trance. What happens is that when a prophet sees a prophecy, they lose their their senses. They're like their body trembles. They lose like their physical functions of their body. It goes into like a crazy trance, and they lose like control of everything except like their mind is like super clear and crystal. Now, when they see it as an allegory, but the meaning is already implanted in them. They're shown it in a sort of an allegory, but then the meaning of the allegory is all implanted, with them. You'll understand why I'm saying that, when we speak about next week's class, which is about Moshe Rabbeinu. The prophet has to be in a joyous mood in order to prophesy. People don't understand how important is simcha, happiness. And if the prophet is not happy, you're not going to have prophecy. To the extent that some prophets had musical instruments to be able to bring them to that level of joy, to bring them to that to that level. What does a prophet do? What does a prophecy, entail? A prophet could either prophesize either about like spiritual concepts, like learning things, like learning lofty concepts that are beyond our basic understanding. Other times, God will give a message to a prophet to warn a group of people or instruct them to do so and so. And when a prophet is sent to do that, God gives him a sign also to prove to them that he's a real prophet, assuming that he's not already established as a prophet. The Gemara Psachim goes, there are certain things that remove prophecy from a prophet. Number one is anger. The Gemara Psachim says, Kol hakoes im navihu, if somebody gets angry, and he is a navi, nevuato mistalekes mino, his prophecy gets removed from him. Another thing is also if somebody's grief or anxiety. For example, Yaakov Avinu, when he was mourning over Yosef, when he had the grief over Yosef, he didn't have any prophecy. He didn't have that. So when you have in the sad, angry moods, you're not going to get prophecy. You have to be in a very, very joyous mood to get prophecy. How many prophets were there? It says the Gemara Megillah, page 14. It says there were twice as many prophets as there were people that left Egypt. So you're talking about over 1 million. You had over 1 million prophets in the history of the Jewish nation. Now we have to explain something. The prophets. First of all, we don't know majority of most of them. We don't even know their names. Forget about who they were, what they prophesied about. Why? Because many of them were ordinary citizens. There could be students, there could be workers. They were just really righteous, they reached a high level, and some of them didn't even know that they were prophesying until they prophesied and afterwards, and then they realized what it was. The reason why we don't have that documented is that those prophets prophesied specifically for their time. And it was something in that time for that generation, and that's why it was never put down into text and into anything that like we have today. The prophets that we have today is because their prophecy is relevant for all generations. That's why we have the prophets that we have today. Era of prophecy was about 1,000 years. It started from the Exodus of Egypt, and it went into about 40 years in the building of the second Bet HaMikdash. So it lasted the first Bet HaMikdash. It lasted through the exile of the first Bet HaMikdash, and it went for about 40 years into the second Bet HaMikdash. Now, the last surviving prophets were you have Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. They were the last ones that prophesied. They were also people of the Anshe Knesset HaGudah, the people of the great assembly. Oh no, I didn't even realize that. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Leave it. So.
You want to speak a tad bit louder?
Oh really? Am I not getting there? Oh, okay.
No.
So, well, okay, I can speak loud. Yeah. All right. So, now, yeah, I'll speak louder. They'll be quiet. Don't worry. So, okay. Where was I? Okay, you also had Mordechai and Esther. Mordechai and Esther, they were also part of the last surviving prophets. Now, there's something interesting. Prophecy in the Holy Land can exist when you have the majority of the Jews. Well, okay. Let's just leave it as a blanket thing of that. One of the ways that prophecy work in Israel is that you have the majority of the Jews living in Israel. Now, what happens when Ezra, when he went back in the second Bet HaMikdash, not everybody came back with them. So, because not everybody came back with them, prophecy didn't survive as much as it did in the first. There's many other things. The Arona has to be over. There's many other concepts on what has to happen in order to have prophecy the way that we did have prophecy. But in any case. What are some rules for prophecy? Some of the halachot, there's actually part of the 613 commandments, there are a certain number of commandments that are related to prophecy. Number one, there is an obligation you have to obey, you have to listen to the prophet. You can't say, I'm working with a different prophet. First of all, it didn't work that way. Now, people go with the rabbis and be like, someone tells you something, be like, my rabbi says I could do this. I'm like, your rabbi is not a rabbi. Because if he tells you you could drive to shul on Shabbat, That's not a rabbi. Like nowadays, you have, back then it didn't work that way. You had, the prophecy, the prophet told you something, you listened. That's it. There's nothing else that you could do. Number 2 is you cannot doubt or test God's promise or the warnings of the prophet. Number 3, this is more particular for the actual prophet. See? Lower down. Raise your voice. Lower down. Number 3, the prophet has to personally carry out the message. And he cannot suppress it, like Yonah, for example, tried to or almost attempted to do it. You have to give the message over. And number 5, whatever it is a prophet cannot prophesy in the name of another God, even if it's true. Which seems obvious, but you're not allowed to go and prophesy in the name of another God. You have to prophesy only in the name of the only true God, which is only one God.
Why would they even do that?
I know.
I don't know. It's a commandment. Just don't. Why? Good question. Once you validate a prophet, once you know that a prophet is true, there's no need to investigate his prophecy and start testing him. Once you know a prophet is true, there's no need to prove anything else about it. The prophet's true, then the prophecy comes true as well. The question though that's asked is that a prophet, we know prophecy has to do with holiness, kedusha. But you had some prophets that were able to prophesy about everything, like regular stuff, their whole world was open up for them. How did that work? So Reb Shimshon goes and explains that, you have, for example, Shaul. Before he became king, his father go and sent him to look for some lost mules. And he spent 3 days going and searching for these mules, and he couldn't find them. Until he went to Shmuel HaNavi, the prophet of Samuel. And he went over to Shmuel, and he wanted to go and ask him, where are the mules? And Shmuel, even before he asked his questions, Shmuel HaNavi told him, by the way, they found the mules. Imagine you come in to ask a rabbi a question, and the rabbi says, oh yeah, here's your answers before you get it. How much to check? How much? So so the question is, but how did what he was really searching for mules? How did that work? So Reb Shimshon Pincus goes and explains. Says, imagine 2 people are sitting and learning Gemara. They're coming to a synagogue and they're learning, and while they're learning, one of them is blind, one of them is able to see. So the person that's blind goes and asks the person that says, excuse me, what color are the walls? And he says, color of the walls. We're learning over here. Who cares what color of the walls? And the blind person says, listen, he says, you can see. For you, it's easy as much as you pick it up. He says, yeah, okay, we're learning over here, but it's very difficult. I don't know what the color of the walls are. I want to know what the color of the walls are. So the person who's learning can look up and say, okay, it's, I don't know, whitish, grayish, beige, majestic. I don't know. It's a color. It's white. Let's make it simple. And the idea is that the prophet, even though they're dealing with kedusha, they're learning Gemara over there, they're learning over there in the. But if they want to see anything, all they got to do is just pick up and look. It's right over here. Yeah, the mules were found. It's not something that they're actively getting. But when they have this openness, that the clarity they have, they're able to see things that even the mundane things are able to see, that it's spread out right before them. And the Vilna Gaon goes and explains that one of the purposes of being in this world is to fix your character traits. People have a very hard... Religious people don't even have a hard time with this. You have to realize one of the main functions of you being in this world is to fix your character traits, become a better person. The way that it's supposed to be is through the Torah. Unfortunately, you have people that are learning Torah, but they don't put the musal. They don't actually go and change themselves to become that better person. A very, very big disconnect that's going on over here. But the Vilna Gaon goes and says that when you have that's what you need. Now, let's say you used to go to a prophet. A prophet would be able to tell you what you need to do for your soul, based on the root of your soul. Even tell you where you need to live. And when you go live over here, you're gonna find your match is gonna be over here. This is gonna be over here. You're gonna learn this over here. They're able to tell you everything. Imagine the power. Imagine what you had. You had a problem. You go to prophet. Hey, what should I do? And then the prophet says you do X, Y, and Z. I probably don't do that. But I'm saying kiss the hand. But if you're Sephardi or Ashkenaz, depends. Back then was it Sephardi or Ashkenaz? Oh, we're a different topic already. Okay.
But that's where the problem.
We had a long conversation in my mind with myself right now. Well,
then people start thinking that those prophets are gods because they feel like they have all the power.
No, so you never had people that actually prayed to a prophet. Even back then when they had prophecy, they didn't go only in the non-Jewish world. Someone, that they went and they turned him into a god. But generally, you don't have that in the Jewish world because the criteria. It's so important that the person, I don't know, if you guys understood that the person has to be very, 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 very holy. I think I was pretty clear, right? There's a very important factor that the person has to be holy because, just get someone off the street, be like, comes and says he's the Mashiach. I still get this. To this day, I get people tell me that they're the Mashiach. Baruch Hashem, I'm so happy. Thank you. I'm finally meeting you. don't know anything about Judaism yet, but they're the Messiah. So, you have to be at a really, really, really high level in order to get that. Now, that person is not going to be arrogant and says, hey, you have to follow me, you have to do this. One of the things also we'll see when we speak about Moshe Rabbeinu, his humility, how, these factors have to come into play. Yeah.
You named a number of prophets that were not Jewish.
Yeah.
They were also very, very holy.
No, excellent question. Were the non-Jewish prophets also holy? Not necessarily, especially Bilam. Well, we're going to explain that next week with Zal Hashem. I'll explain that in relation to Moshe Rabbeinu. We'll explain how that works. So, excellent question. The idea is over here. Let's say, imagine the scenario. Something Rav Shimshon Pincus brings down. You wake up and you're in a 7-star hotel. There is that, right? No 7-star hotel? 5 is the max? Imagine there's a 7-star hotel, okay? It puts 5-star, very expensive. Takes a 5-star and makes it look like it's a hostel. And you go and your roommates are rats. And you go to this 7-star hotel. You just wake up and everything's done for you. Like, well, it's a 7-star hotel. You're in this huge suite. You're overseeing the world. And you have, like the most luxurious meals, the Torah, everything is to your thing. Now, you're going in there, you don't know, you're confused. So you're just going through the motions and you're doing it and you're starting to enjoy, being there. And, but every time you pass by the reception, you should probably say who's paying for this? What's going on? What's going on over here? The more that you push it off, the worse off that you are. The closer that you say, you go to reception and be like, who owns this hotel? How did I get here? Is somebody paying for this? Am I paying for this? I never signed anything. Jew brain works. All right. So, anyways, so you go and you start asking questions. What, how did I get here? What is this going to cost me? I have this amazing luxury, but what is this going to cost me? It says, what about people that they're living in this world? This world puts a 7-star hotel into shame. Have you ever the pleasures? Have you ever wondered what do you have to pay? What is the cost of pleasure? What's the pleasure of ear? Have you ever felt the pleasure of ear? Rabbi Victor Miller. It's good, right? Ear is good. Yeah. Even in Brooklyn. There's a story of Rabbi Victor Miller. Rabbi Victor Miller was walking down the street. His synagogue used to be on Ocean Parkway, right over here. In fact, his synagogue was the next block over. And he used to go and he used to walk. And I used to be in the yeshiva, also, very close. And I used to see him walk. He used to always have a notepad on him, and he would always used to walk over there. And one time, is a story I think his grandson brings down. And one time, his grandson comes into his house, and he sees the sink. I think I said the story before. He sees the sink is overflowed with water. The biggest rabbis had dunked into the sink. And imagine you're coming into the house, you see, your elderly grandfather standing up there, fully clothed, head inside a sink of water. Now, it's a big rabbi. You don't ask questions. You stand over there and you wait. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Suddenly, the rabbi picks it up and he takes a deep breath of air. And the grandson there is like, Rabbi, I have a question. And he says, yes. He says, what you doing? And the rabbi goes and explains, says, I was walking. And he used to walk. And, walk on Ocean Parkway. It's very nice. You have a lot of trees, but you also have a lot of pollution. And he says, I was walking with somebody, and somebody said, I was appreciating it. And somebody says, look at all the pollution over here in Brooklyn and Ocean Parkway. And, and I felt like, I didn't appreciate air like I always used to. So I had to deprive myself of air. And then when I was under the water, I was like, you know what? Then you take the first breath after you're underwater for a long time. Then you could appreciate water. Have you ever had a cold for a long time and you can't smell from your nose? You don't appreciate what taking a breath from your nose is. You don't realize what it has until you have. So the rabbi wanted to appreciate it, so he put himself in a situation where he couldn't use it, and then he started to appreciate it again. But what's the price for it? What's the price for air? A price for a cup of water. How amazing is water? It's so simple yet so unbelievably amazing. A fruit. What is the price for everything that we have to do? If somebody doesn't ask these questions, you're living in a 17,000-star hotel called planet Earth. Everything is done for you. Everything is here. You have so much. Your basic needs are all very, very simple to survive, I'm saying. And you have all that laid out in front of you, yet we don't ask, what is the price for this? We need to know, what's the price? How much is this going to cost me if I do something? And you know what? That's what the Torah is. The Torah tells you the price of an apple. The Torah, the Torah tells you the price of a cup of water. The Torah tells you the price of marriage, the kiddushim. What do you have to do? There's a price for everything, and you have to do something. Now, not only does the Torah give you the price and God tell you the price for it, does something so unbelievably amazing. Imagine you go to the 7-star hotel, and someone's sitting there by the reception. You go up to them and you say, listen, he says, I've been here for quite a while. You guys do a great job, but who's paying for all this? And he says, how much is it going to cost? And he says, this is on the house. Oh, you just got to say thank you, and then you're good. That's it? He's like, thank you. Thank you for everything. He says, oh, by the way, now that you said thank you, here's $1 million. Right? Every time you say thank you. What are you going to be sitting over there? Thank you, 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 thank you. You know, you're just going to sit there and say thank you. That's what God is telling us. God is giving us water. God is giving us the nature, a juicy apple. And we're saying, well, this is amazing. Have you ever think about it? It can be orchestrated in a lab. It's so amazing. And you say, what's the price? Oh, it's a blessing. Now you make the blessing. Now I'm going to give you $1 billion for that blessing. Because when you get to the next world, you're going to get reward for that. So not only is God giving you an unbelievably amazing world, God, the payment for it, what you have to do is say you're blessing whatever it is that the payment for that particular thing. And then you get an infinite amount of reward for that. Can you imagine that? And somebody could go through their entire life and never asking the question, what does this cost? What a shame that is. Somebody that's able to go through life and not realize that there's a price to pay for everything that we do. And not only there's a price to pay for everything that we do, there's something that we get from it as well. It's something so unbelievable. How do we get all this? It was through prophecy. The Torah, through prophecy, was able to go and give us this information that was through God. Now, we have to... What time is it? Okay. Oh, I've only been learning for 5 minutes. Okay. So... no one look at your watches. Okay, so the idea of prophecy, there's like a connection between like the divine and humans, but there's more than just what we think as prophecy. For example, divine inspiration. You guys familiar with that? Divine, like ruach hakodesh, divine inspiration. Now, we have to also, first of all, understand like there is inspiration and then there's divine inspiration. So inspiration is somebody who just get inspired. Divinely inspired, first of all, like inspiration, Hitler was inspired, Gaddafi was inspired, many terrorists are also inspired. That doesn't mean they get divine. That is why the divine inspiration is lower level than prophecy. Divine inspiration, the Torah was not written through divine inspiration. The Torah was written through prophecy. Because divine inspiration, how do you know? Somebody could be divine. There is. I mean, obviously, there's some criteria they're able to, pinpoint and figure out. But in general, inspiration could come from a variety of different sources. The difference is also is that when you have divine inspiration can be something that can be coming from within. Can be coming from external sources. It can be coming from a bunch of different... In order to explain this, I think, you have to understand how people get inspired. Have you ever listened to like a song and get inspired? You get it, you listen to a song, what was that? What's that? That's, you're inspired from a song? Like, have you ever just gotten up one day and just like, I'm so pumped, the inspiration can come with so many different sources. It can even come from bad things. Someone could go and sit and watch a movie, and that's it. I'm becoming, I'm inspired to do X, Y, and Z. It's still inspiration, but because of the level of this inspiration, the Torah, the 613 commandments was given through prophecy, not through divine inspiration. It's a lower level of prophecy. Now, when you have to, when we're looking at the idea of prophecy, we also have to figure out why it's important. We gave one reason why it's important, because that this is the way that we know that the Torah is, we got the Torah from God. We have to know that it lies on prophetic powers, it lies on prophecy. It says, but why did this actually have to be as a source of one of the 630 commandments? Why couldn't it be like, believe that the Torah is from God and, put it, why prophecy was specified something in particular in its own? And it says that Dveri Yirmiyahu goes and brings down and says, you want to know what the importance of prophecy is? The importance of why we need to know about prophecy. Not for the actual prophets, but actually to tell you who is a false prophet. Because the damage that could be done with a false prophet. If you have one false prophet, they could change everything. They could change they can make new religions out of it, and they could change inspire everybody to do bad, not good. So there's so much power to it. One of the main reasons that we have this is not only to tell you about the prophecy, but also to tell you about getting you involved in someone who's a false prophet. The idea that, we know that the Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 11a, says that the last of the prophets, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, when they died, the prophetic spirit departed from Israel. When it says departed, it means nistalka. Nistalka, it means like it was removed, it was departed. Says Rabbi Reuven Margolis says that when it means that it was departed, it doesn't mean that it ceased to exist. It means it wasn't as common as it was before. And it brings proof that, no, we have sources that even the Gemara that brings us that you have, for example, the Gemara in Eruvin, page 64b, it says, Rabban Gamliel perceived with prophetic spirit. Vayikra Rabbah, Midrash, in chapter 21, verse 8, it says Rabbi Akiva gazed with prophetic spirit. And the Talmud Yerushalmi, it says Rabbi Meir gazed with prophetic. You had rabbis that went, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai also in Talmud Yerushalmi gazed with prophetic spirit. You have rabbis that came way after prophecy ceased to exist, that they still, the Gemara says that they were able to have some sort of prophetic spirit. And then you have even Reb Chaim Vital, where he brings down a Sha'ar Kudashah, says that even in his time, which is about 500 years ago, even in his time, you had people that were able, the righteous people were able to go, I'm sure he was speaking about the arizal, they would go and they were able to predict the future. They were able to have these powers. So rather, he explains that there was never a divine decree that prophecy should cease to exist. Rather, the amount of qualified individuals ceased to exist, and that's why prophecy didn't exist as much as it did on a previous level. But not the fact that prophecy doesn't is no longer in existence per se. Now there are different levels of prophecy. The Rambam brings this down in Moreh Nevuchim. He brings down that there are different levels. There's different levels of prophecy. For example, a prophet could see the allegory in a dream, or a prophecy could hear the voice as a prophet, or it could see in a dream, or they could appear as if God is speaking to them, or it's a prophetic vision. There's many different variations of prophecy. However, there's also other different ways of getting messages from heaven to earth. Messages is not such a, but you'll soon see, there's like a connection. You get a strong spiritual type of connection. So now, and in fact, I wasn't sure, there's some of the things over here I wasn't sure how much I should explain, but I'm going to explain it, especially since now that I said that, I have to explain it. But I'm going to try to make it as easy to understand as possible. Some of these things are a little bit difficult to understand. Some of these things seem very, very far-fetched, but bear with me, and hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, we'll be able to gain some clarity in this. So now, there's an idea we mentioned before as ruach hakodesh, right? Otherwise loosely translated as, divine. It's not really divine inspiration. I don't know if that's a correct. I don't know. Ruach hakodesh. Let's call it ruach hakodesh for what it is. The Rabbeinu Bachai goes in Vayikra, chapter 8, verse 8, that it says that ruach hakodesh is a lower level of prophecy. It's a lower level than that of actual prophecy. What was one of the ways that in prophecy, the prophet loses the senses, awareness of all the worldly phenomena. However, when ruach hakodesh, the person who's getting the ruach hakodesh, he's still able to, has full control, full awareness of everything else like that, and then he's also able to predict the future, or whatever it is, different things depending on the concept on what the ruach hakodesh was. Says it Tzemach Tzedek, says what's the difference between the sages? Something very interesting. What is the difference between the sages and the prophets? Why did he ask this question? Because there's something very interesting. You have, for example, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He was able to bring down such lofty Kabbalistic concepts that he brought down that the prophets didn't bring down. So how is it that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote down these deep Kabbalistic mystical concepts that even the prophets didn't write down? And the answer is that there's a different ruach hakodesh, the divine inspiration. It's two different things than prophecy. When you have, for example, prophecy, they see something, and the prophet sees something with pure clarity. And again, we'll explain what the level of the clarity that this is probably in next week's class. But they see something with pure clarity. They see something with all its depth and everything that's inside of it. When a sage goes and receives this ruach hakodesh, they're able to receive these divine concepts. But these divine concepts they get different bits and pieces. They get the facts, but they don't understand it to the level that you have that the clarity and the closeness and the familiarity of the prophet. Does that make sense? You guys understand? There's the facts. They get the facts of the sages, but they don't get it as close as clarity as a prophet gets it. So there's it's different levels, and this is why the Gemara says in Bava Batra, page 12a, that a sage, a chacham, is even greater, superior than a prophet. This also brings down that a sage is superior to a prophet. And by the way, they're not mutually exclusive. A sage could be, it could be that. Excuse me. Okay. All right. Can you just tell them to just quiet down in the back, because you guys are all going to be on the camera. Now you're leaving. Okay, I should have said that 20 minutes ago. Okay. So the idea is over here is that there's a different level of prophecy. Now, it's a lower one. The Rabbi, the Arizal, revealed that one of the ways that he was able to get this level of close connection to God, this ruach hakodesh, was because of the way that he did the mitzvot with joy. You don't realize how loud you scream until it's quiet, and then you listen to music very loud. You go like they go and be like, "Wow, why'd you say?" Just take it off. We're in a library. It's there's different, and then you realize how loud you're talking. See how important it is to realize your surroundings. How people don't even think about it. You're sitting in a place where there's a class, and they're speaking so loudly. People don't put the two and two together that maybe they should lower the voices. Anyways, so where was I? Okay, now we said that we said with ruach hakodesh. So, here's something I wasn't sure if I should explain. The arizal says, you want to know what the formula to get ruach hakodesh is?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. You are? Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah. Very, 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 very not simple. But okay, let's do it. The arizal brings it down in Shalai Kedusha. Shalai Kedusha, in fact, just bear with me. Shalai Kedusha, he brings down, he says like this, says, ruach hakodesh can dwell on any man or woman, Jew or Gentile, if the actions befit it. Now let's see what are the actions I need to do. Number one, I'm not going to number it because it's going to be a lot. You have to repent devoutly from all those sins. Repent devoutly. Number two, you have to, one is like, I'm out. Like, all right. Number two, no numbers. Next is that the soul, when you way that you perfect the soul is through positive commandments. When you do these positive commandments, you're doing all the positive very enthusiastically with joy. And you have to be totally, completely mindful during prayer. When you're studying Torah enthusiastically. Like how? Like the dedication of an ox to its plow until the point of exhaustion. Until the point that you can't go. And we had rabbis that would learn until they couldn't make it anymore. Some of them didn't even make it to their bed. That's the point of the exhaustion that they did. Also, you have to keep eating and drinking to a minimum. Right now, all Americans. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Another thing, you have to wake up at midnight, and it's not to catch up on lost. Yeah. Okay. You also have to distance yourself from all negative character traits. You also have to avoid unnecessary conversation. You also have to purify your body with regular immersions in the mikvah. You have to put yourself in solitude for extended periods to contemplate the awe of God. You have to imagine God before your eyes constantly. You have to be careful to free your thoughts and concerns of this world. And you have to cling to God with great love and yearning. And after you do these very, very few things, you can merit divine inspiration through one of the following ways, says the Arizal in Shalai Kedusha. Either number one, you will get drawn down from your soul a supernal light, a light that's connected to the soul, to your root soul above. And this is what you deal with complete ruach hakodesh. Number two is that when you perform a mitzvah, you get an angel. That's the way it works. And when you do a mitzvah, you get an angel. Now this angel, it's like a legit angel. Now this angel could actually come to you. And this is known as the Maggid, the Maggidim. We'll speak about it soon, about the Rabbi Yosef Karo and his connection that he had to this. This angel can reveal himself to you, and it depends on the level of the observance of the mitzvah that you did. Depending, the more righteous that mitzvah did, the more that this angel is going to be. Like if you had some mixed emotions, mixed thoughts, bad and good, then there's going to be a mixture in this angel, bad and good. Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. So now, let's listen to it again. Let's review. Okay. So now, that was number two. Number three is getting Gilui Eliyahu. It's getting Eliyahu Hanavi coming and revealing himself to you. The more that righteous a person is, the more frequent this revelation can happen. And in fact, there is a mention that many of the writings of the Arizal are inspired by Gilui Eliyahu, that he learned with Eliyahu Hanavi, and that's why he was able to get a lot of this information that he was able to get. Number four is that you have an ancient, sage, a big chacham come and reveal himself to you, and for whatever reason, either it could be because you share the same root of the soul, or it could be because you did a mitzvah the same enthusiastic way that he did it. You had a connection to some particular sage. That sage should come and visit you. And finally, there is an idea of a dream, prophetic dreams. There's also something called a bat-kol. A bat-kol is like a voice that emanates from heaven, and it's not like Tosfos in Sanhedrin, page 11a goes and explains it. It's not like you actually hear the voice, you hear like the echo of the voice. It's like the secondary voice. You hear the echo of the voice. So you hear a voice from the distance that comes out from heaven, and it proclaims some sort of information. Let's explain a few of these things, and we'll finish off. Yeah, we'll finish off with these with this concept. I just realized I forgot. Okay. Yeah. Let's finish the concept first. There's something that we spoke before about Gilui HaMazal. Gilui HaMazal means that you have this angel go and come to you and be able to go and explain to you certain things. It could tell you deep Kabbalistic concepts. It could tell you rebuke. It could give you praise. It could give you many things. We have one of the most famous ones is that there's a sefer called Maggid from Rabbi Yosef Karo, who's the author of the Shulchan Aruch, had a visit, very frequent visits that he detailed, that he writes about his visit from this angel, and he writes down, the what happened. This is Rabbi Yosef Karo. There's something also called Gilui HaMazal. This we didn't explain before. This is something very very interesting, very very high level also. The Arizal goes and explains that this is a revelation of a root of a person's own soul. So we know mazal. Mazal comes from the word hazala, which means dripping. The way that you have part of your mazal is in the heavens, and it drips down this. It could be, let's say, information. It could be, if you're worthy of it, it could drip down these messages, consciously, whatever it is, into you. The mazal is something that you ever realize. I explain it in a. It's something that it's not part of you. It sort of surrounds you. It's like there's certain parts of the soul. I don't know how deep I want to get into it. Like an aura. Yeah, exactly, like an aura. It surrounds you in that aspect, and if you have the ability, if you reach a high enough level, you're able to tap into that. And once you tap into that, you're able to get into a very, very high spiritual level. Which is interesting as a side note why people say mazal tov if it's something that's coming up from on top and above. There's a lot to speak about this concept. But in generally it's a very very high level of of connecting to the divine. There was something that I meant to say earlier, and that's why it's. I should have spoken earlier. Remember when I was speaking about the concept that you're put in this world and you want to know what the cost of something is. You need to know. You have to ask, what is the cost of something? And you have to say, okay, what am I supposed to do? God put me in this world. There must be a reason for it. If there must be a reason, then I have to go and follow out what the reason is. And that's the Torah, that's the mitzvot that we have to do. And the example that you said, for example, you take an apple. What are you taking an apple? You're saying thank you to God for giving you this apple. You said we say a bracha before and bracha afterwards. You say thank you, you connect it. So now, the problem is that nowadays, not only do you have people that don't thank God, but they have complaints of God. It says, why does God hate me? And I speak to people like this, unfortunately more often than I would like to, that, are very, very ungrateful and very angry at God. And now, it's an emotion. I can't judge a person for being angry, but we have to understand where this comes from. The anger of God, the like, why is God doing this to me? Like, I don't understand. I thought He loves me. Why would He do such a thing? I'll give you some examples in shidduchim. Like, I have sometimes, let's say, people that are older and they didn't get married yet and they really want to get married and they say, why is God doing this? Why is God punishing it? And I say, why do you blame it on God? I'm like, why is it God's fault? You're a rotten person. You don't know how to behave. You don't know how to say thank you. You don't know. There are some people that they break up. He didn't buy me anything on my birthday. He doesn't love me. You know what? You should break up with him. Yeah. The reason why you're not getting married, they blame it on God. You don't fix your character traits. Like, like he didn't scream from the rooftops how much he loves me. Because he's crazy if he would. Like, that's not the way that it's supposed to go. People are falsely, and you have it from the man's side also. I didn't find my supermodel yet. You'll never find it. You're on the level of the hunchback of Notre Dame. Stop thinking of yourself as, I don't know, a male model. I don't know, whatever the highest, whatever it is. Like someone who's really, really deserving of it. You have people that they search for something, and then God doesn't love me. Like, no, you don't love you. You don't know who you are. You have to realize who you are. We go and we complain against God. We blame against God. Be like, I don't understand. How come this didn't happen? We need to realize that maybe, just maybe, it's your fault and not God's. Like, why are you blaming God? And obviously, you have things that are beyond your fault. Someone gets abused in their kid. I'm not dealing about those particular, cases. I'm dealing about, like things that, like, God, like, come on, like, and when people come to me with these type of situations, dating is a very, very common one that I get. Yeah.
Like sometimes sometimes the person could be really good. They could be like from and like it's just not happening. And,
From doesn't mean really good, but yeah.
but I'm saying like overall they're a good person and yada yada.
Right.
I kind of can't blame them for feeling so frustrated with God.
It's true. And I'm not saying that there's one reason why. I'm not saying the only reason why someone is not getting married is because of yourself. Obviously, there could be something that is from God. But the people that I've spoken to, and not everybody, I speak to people that really are great people.
A particular set of human
Yeah, a particular set of human beings that I tend to speak to a lot of them. I guess they have my number. So, these type of people, like, they have to realize, like, it's, and I think that's the best example is when you deal with dating. You have some people, some things you should be picky about, and some things you should not be picky about. Some things you have no right to be picky about, and some things you have an obligation to be picky about. Like there's some people that they're like, okay, religious level doesn't even, no, you should be worried about it. Good character traits, you should be worried about that. Even looks, you should be worried about that. You have to be attracted to the person. But then you have people that they only want the unrealistic. And I'm like, of course you're never going to get married. A woman wants somebody that's going to go and going to be head over heels from her the second that, and I'm like, you're not deserving of that. I'm sorry. You're not as good as you think you are. Lower your standards for a second and realize who you are. And people, unfortunately, this is not only in dating. Marriage break up like this. You know what she said to me? You know what he said to, they go and there's like, stop putting yourself on such a high pedestal and thinking who you are, that you're gadol adol, that everyone has to go and bow down to you. Like everybody has to serve you and everybody has to do that. There's so many problems that come into this because we don't realize, and it's really a lack of gratitude. Why is there a lack of gratitude? Because we think we deserve everything. Now, some people, you're right, it falls into that category where they do deserve it. They're really good people. And it could be that it's a divine decree. I don't know. That God didn't want this person to get married for a particular reason. I don't know the reasons. But the first step that we have to do before blaming God is we have to look into ourselves and think about it. What is the reason? Maybe there's something that I could do different. And this doesn't only go to shidduchim. It goes for panasah. It goes for everything. The idea that we started off with tefillah. How does tefillah get you something? How does prayer get you something and this is something that I want to speak about when we speak about in lengthy prayer, but I feel it's important to mention it now. When you pray, if something is supposed to come to you, it's supposed to come to you. If something is not supposed to come to you, it's not. What's prayer going to make a difference? Now, there's many, many answers to this. But one very important answer, when we pray, we're supposed to change ourselves. And that's the idea that if you're just praying, like, God, I have a whole list of things, you're not changing yourself. You're the same person that you are before. So beforehand, you aren't supposed to get it? No, you're not supposed to get it. Nothing really, you prayed, and it's good, and it helps a little bit. But it didn't change you. The idea of prayer is, it could be that you are person A. And person A was not supposed to be getting this. But all of a sudden you prayed. What did you do when you prayed? We started off that you nullified yourself. You put yourself into you realized the greatness of God. You became a different person after a good prayer. You become a different person. You're not person A anymore. Person A wasn't supposed to get that. Person B is supposed to get that. You become a different person. That's how your prayer gets answered. There is an idea over here that we have to realize. We have to sometimes look internally before we look externally for realizing the source of our problems, the source of our issues. Question?
Yeah, a while ago, like a rabbi gave a speech and he said sometimes that prayers are not answered because sometimes people think they really, really want something, but they really don't, and they don't really feel it. They just think they want it, and so that could be.
That's true also.
Can you change your life by praying for something really hard? It's not can you get something that's not meant for you just by praying really hard?
1,000,000%.
Whether it's good or bad, it's just not meant for you.
Really?
Yes.
Even if it's bad for you?
Yes. Even if it's bad for you.
Pray for something bad.
You should always add in the prayer that it should be for the best. You could always add that.
If it's good for you.
Yeah. There's people are able to go and pray for another person, like let's say a guy sees a girl and he really wants, and he prays, I want to marry this girl, I want to marry this girl, and he marries this girl. And it wasn't meant for him. It was supposed to be meant for somebody else. Because of his prayer, God said, what am I supposed to do? All right, go.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen unless you're Leah Minu. So, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta crack your ears, lose your eyelashes and have red eyes.
Depending, you should know some people have a very strong connection to prayer, and a little bit, we don't know the connected power that we have. You don't know the soul, the connection you have. Somebody could really pray for 7,000 years and that's going to happen. Somebody else could just make a little prayer on the way walking to work and that's going to answer it. Like, we have different, our souls work in different mysterious ways. So it's very difficult to say, you'll have to pray 1,000,000 years for it to happen. Not necessarily. Maybe yeah, maybe not. You pray, it didn't work, you pray again. That's the rule.
So if we add, if it's good for me,
yes.
all our prayers were good?
Yeah. To the extent. Before we get any more questions, let me do one recap, and then we'll open up for all the questions. Recap on prophecy. Slow down. Me? Okay. Yeah. Then, focus. I'm focused. That's not a problem. The idea with prophecy. Prophecy is one of the 13. You have to believe that there's such a thing as prophecy. The prophets, that is true. Whatever the prophets said was written down in the Torah. It is very important because this shows this is what the Torah stands on. The only way that we're able to know what God wants is through this communication, and this communication is known as prophecy. We have to also be very aware that there's prophecy and there's fake prophets. The fake prophets is a very, very important concept that we have to understand, because if we realize if someone's a fake prophet, they could cause tremendous amount of trouble, tremendous amount of damage. So we have to realize the difference between a true prophet and a fake prophet. Now, even though prophecy doesn't exist today like it used to, we still, through great attachment to the Torah, through great attachment to the mitzvot, through great go and sacrifice, you're able to reach a high level that you are able to get this type of similar connection to God, to be able to even have things, be able to perceive things that regular people do not perceive. Now let's open up for questions. Yes.
So someone asked, can someone decide for themselves if a prophet is true based on the criteria, or is it like announced through the rabbis and you have to follow what the rabbis say?
Oh, good question. So, I mean, it's generally, if a prophet becomes a prophet, it's not like someone comes and be like, hey, listen, don't tell anybody I'm a prophet. Okay, my proof is, no, generally they come out, the people, they're known as a prophet. They're known as a prophet from when they're younger or whatever it is, and, when they come, that level of prophecy, and everybody knows about it. And once everybody knows about it, it's known that they're a prophet, then it goes on and they're able to...
Mashiach is going to be a prophet.
Yes, Mashiach is going to be a prophet.
And then we're going to get all mixed up and stuff, right? That's all I remember, I'm sorry.
Well, not necessarily, but you're talking about right before Mashiach. Right, yeah.
Okay, so there's prophecy, there's divine inspiration, and then where does, intuition fit into that? Is that, the lower level?
Intuition doesn't necessarily mean it's divine. However, there is something about intuition. For example, a woman's intuition is very important. I tell husbands to listen to their wife's intuition, because it actually, if a wife says, listen, I don't think you should go to business with this type of guy, listen to her. The woman can sense different things than, that man. There is a different level. That doesn't necessarily mean that comes from a divine power. It could also just be from a sensing of who that person is. You realize, without getting too much into details in it, we judge people by just looking at them. Now, it's not good, but technically, if you're on a high enough level, and none of us are, so you can't, that's not going to happen, you could tell a person by the level of what he looks like. In fact, Kabbalistically, people that reach a high enough, there are certain words, I'm talking about, you're talking about really, really high, they could see, letters, Hebrew letters floating around, certain areas and things like that, in your body, depending on the sins, depending on your righteousness or love. You are able to, by seeing somebody, sense their holiness and their non-holiness. And in fact, you have even people nowadays that are not so righteous, but they have this power. And I call it a power. You have Kabbalah, you have righteous people that have this. You had some rabbis, that it was said that they were able to read your face. There is an idea of reading your face. So what it could be as a possible explanation is that women have some sort of extra tapping into this power, maybe, possibly. I don't know. It's my own little understanding of it, that men maybe do not have as of a clear cut. If we could just separate men and women like that into this, and maybe that's what we could say. The intuition doesn't necessarily mean based off divine information, but just based off reading who that person is. Now that's my own, interpretation. Maybe right, maybe you could agree with me, disagree with me, but it could come from many other things than other divine power.
Sorry for the billion questions.
No.
So do children or adults or, people with autism or disabilities like that have free will?
No. So it says somebody who is somebody who has a, I'll explain like this. Somebody whose mind is not, full, with them, they don't have free will. But there are levels of this. Okay. There are some people that have different, and I've had this question asked by me by particular people that have these issues. Let's say they have, some sort of, mental disability. And it could be it could be minor, but they could still have free will. Now again, only God could judge. I can't tell a person you have free will, you don't have free will. No one knows that. Only God. But if you have somebody that's severely mentally disabled, they don't have free will. They're not going to punish for anything if they do wrong. Similar like a child doesn't have the free will, doesn't get the.
But they're still here to correct.
Yes. Correct. They're still here to correct, and in fact, some of them do have very strong connection to the next world.
I'm not crazy about that. I know that.
Okay.
I don't know. People tell me I'm crazy. But so my question is so if they're there to are they there specifically sometimes to kind of get their parents to be better, or I guess teachers, since I'm a teacher, or
It's hard to say what's the reason. Only God knows. Generally speaking, there is a reason for that soul to come down, and there's a reason for also the people. Yeah, there's a reason for everything. Let's put it that way. There's a reason for everything. But it's a very, very difficult to say who is the main reason and what's the, only God knows that.
I want to have a better understanding why they're here, especially
they're here to fix something. They're very high-level souls. They're very righteous souls that they have to fix.
Remember that when you're just losing your mind and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna.
It's hard. Yeah, it really is. You're right. You have to always put it into your mind. I heard there was a clip that was going around by Rabbi Duvi Ben Shushan. I don't know if you guys see this. Amazing. You have to listen to this clip. He was, explaining that. He said, like, every rabbi, every teacher, every parent needs to listen to this. And I don't remember all the things that he said off the top of my head, but it's so. It was the idea was he was like there's a 5-year-old and they're screaming and they're kicking and they're doing all these things, and the rabbi says, "Chutzpah! How dare you do this? How do you act?" He's 5. Relax. He doesn't, going against you. Like, we have to realize, you have to take a step back for a second, and children get on our nerves, and, especially teachers and things like that. You have to take a step back for a second and realize you're dealing with a child, yeah? They have the mental capacity of a child. They think like a child. They don't think, let's cause problems. Sometimes this is not things that happen just because they're children. And this, as a teacher and somebody or a parent, you really have to put this in perspective. If you lose it out of these things, you have to figure out if this is the right profession.
You gotta be mindful, though.
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. But something that a person, people get burnt out and they go this, and how much can you hear with the screaming children again and again, and how many times could you have to wipe a kid's nose against your sleeve? Teachers have plenty to speak about. But the ultimate reason is you have to realize, you have to really put it in perspective, it's a child. It's a child. Some adults, I say that also. They're just children. Any other questions? Yes. No questions. No other questions. Okay. Chazak u'baruch.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.